Okay. Right. So this is just an assumption. This is the public IP of this google.com server, and it is being advertised, or the google.com has taken the services of what? AS400 service provider, and it is being asked that, okay, you need to advertise this particular IP, right? Now, what has happened? This AS400 is doing what? It is advertising this particular IP, right? So when this AS400 is advertising this IP, AS400 is also connected with what? It is also connected with AS300. It is also connected with AS400, right? It is also connected with AS100, right? It is also connected with what? Directly to this, right? And you can say that all these AS numbers they are interlinked with each other. Are we okay? So they are connected with each other. So whatever is being advertised by AS400, that will be available to AS300, that will be available to AS200, that will be available to AS100. Then only the users or end users, those they are connected with AS100 service provider, 200 service provider, 300 service provider, they're able to reach to this. Is it right? So do you understand this? Tell me if you have a doubt. No one is speaking.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, all
My side,
good.
all good.
Okay. So let's suppose that now there is an end user who would like to access this google.com. So this end user is connected to AS100 as a service provider. And it is sending a request that I need to connect what? Open the browser. Over the browser, there is a which request? Get
Google.com.
request, right? And what is that get request? With HTTPS header www.google.com, right? In the background, the services will work such as what? Such as DNS, such as the HTTP header, SSL, TCP, all these services will work, right? And the request will be received by AS100 and AS100 can forward it to the AS400. There are various paths available. Based on the best path, it will be forwarding that request, and then AS400 will be able to reach to the google.com, right? And that's wherein there will be a response coming in. Is it fine? So this we understand, okay, this is the way that communication is happening, right? That's the way we are connecting to the google.com. Like example, I open my browser and I'm connected. So what I'm doing, I'm requesting to my ISP and my ISP is providing me the path to the google.com. Now, how my ISP gets that particular path? That's the job of the BGP. That's the job of the BGP, right? So what the BGP does, whosoever would like to advertise their public IPs to the internet, the BGP is advertising them further. How it is advertising? When there is a different AS number, it is advertising them with the EBGP. When it is same AS number, it is advertising it with IBGP. Like example, that you will be able to see that this AS400 in which this google.com IP is what advertised, right? So this is the public IP which we Just understand or just assume that this is the public IP which is there for the google.com. Until this public IP is not available here in this AS routing table, this AS or this my service provider will not allow me the reachability to this, right? So how it is being advertised by the BGP from AS400 to AS100. That's what we need to learn. Are we okay? So how it is being done? So let's suppose that this is the customer and customer might have connected with one particular router over here. Yes? Yes?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Customer might have connected here with one particular router, which is actually getting the route of the
Google.com.
google.com, right? So there might be possibility within this AS, there are many routers. Right? And all this router might be,
IBGP.
there could be two scenarios since it is an ISP network.
Yeah. Route reflectors.
So we say that, okay, these all routers are now connected with each other. And they'll be what? One IGP configured over here. Any one IGP, right? So let's assume that that IGP is what? OSPF, right? So as soon as this router receives the route of google.com through the IGP, it will advertise to this, it will advertise to this, right? And these routers further advertise and it will be able to reach to every router since the IGP must be having what? Identical topology database. Yes, we talked about it. So this IP is what? Advertised to this router and this router is able to advertise it to the entire OSPF. Yes? Is it right? Tell me, guys.
No, usually my understanding is OSPF is used for private IP addresses, right? So if you are trying to leak public IPs into OSPF, then OSPF is all about triggered updates, right? So whenever there is some changes, it will keep on changing, and that will cause a lot of routing computation.
I
Uh,
agree with that part. Completely
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
But
Okay.
you are reaching to the advanced level. I'm only talking about the
Okay.
basic level.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
understood. Okay,
I'm
understood.
at very
Understood.
basic. I'm just talking about the basic behavior of an IGP.
Okay,
Right?
got it.
Once the IGP will
No,
receive it and it will be able to
uh,
synchronize with each other.
yeah, yeah. No, no.
Right?
My intention was when you were asking the question, is it right? So that's why I raised my doubts. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Got it.
Now I'll come to your doubt. Right?
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
Yes.
ma'am, there may be a distribution from one AS to another AS.
Yes, we'll come to that. First, let's talk about AS400, how the AS400 is bringing that route.
Ma'am, I have one doubt here.
Right. Tell me.
This AS, all the AS are interconnected with each other, ma'am. So, ma'am,
Right.
there may be possibility that they will share their own routing tables with each other.
There might be possibility.
So, ma'am, in this case, why do we require BGP to share the routing tables? It means, ma'am, can we use a simple other protocol rather than BGP so that they can advertise using the dynamically?
Yes. You can use that. And in many scenarios that can be used. Like example, if I tell you, have you ever heard that there are two service providers, those they are merged?
No,
Or
ma'am.
one service provider has acquired the other service provider,
Yes.
I have seen it. I have seen it. Yeah.
right? You have seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're using the same concept. They are not configuring between them what? The BGP, because BG is complicated. They use IGP. Still they have different AS number,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
that is that they are redistributing. They are, remember when we were talking about the OSPF, we were talking about autonomous system boundary router,
Yes.
Mm.
ASBR.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
the
Yes.
job of it. Okay.
Mm.
So that's something else. First, focus on to now this concept, that what I'm going to
Mm.
give it to you, and automatically you'll get your answers. Okay. So what is the basic behavior of this IGP? So as soon as, let's take, I'll say that this is the router one. As soon as router one receives a request of this route that is being advertised by the customer, and now it is available in the IGP table, what this router is going to do? This router is going to synchronize that advertisement to all over this. That's the basic behavior of this. But we doesn't want that. Advertising a customer IP in the internal network of ISP is not a good practice. Why it is not a good practice? Tell me, what is going to happen? Whatever the internal routes are there with this service provider, that will also be exchanged with the customer as well. Yes or no? So that's not a good practice. So what will be there? There'll be BGP routers available over here. There'll be OSPF. Along with the OSPF, there'll be BGP routers available, and the BGP routers will keep that advertisement inside the BGP table. They are not going to bring into IGP table this particular route. So I'll say this is what the AS boundary router, where I will be configuring what? BGP, right? Then we have what? Other AS boundary router. This is also an AS boundary router. This is also an AS boundary router, right? So here I'm going to configure BGP. Here I need to configure BGP. So these routers will have two different routing protocols. One is BGP and the other one is what? OSPF. OSPF will only provide the IGP reachability, wherein these BGP, since they belongs to what? They belongs to
Same AS number.
same AS number. These will have what? These will have the IBGP neighborship on the top of IGP. So it will have a neighborship with this router. It will have a neighborship with this router. It will have a neighborship with this router. So all the BGP routers will have their own IBGP neighborship and they'll carry the BGP route, right? And this customer will also send the route advertisement via BGP protocol to this router. So internally within the AS, it will have what? IBGP peering, but outside the AS, it will have what?
EBGP.
EBGP peering. So inside, it is going to have IBGP peering. To carry the route outside as a transit AS, right? And outside the it will be carrying the EBGP peering. Now that be it with customer who has to advertise the route, or be it with other service providers, because that route needs to be advertised. Is it clear to you? Do you understand why exactly we will be using IBGP? So that it is not going to disturb the internal routes of the AS400. And the BGP will only carry the route of the customer in the BGP table. And since these BGP routers are not directly connected, so they will be using what? The reachability via the IGP. Via the IGP.
IGP.
Right? So here, if I need to say where exactly the EBGP will be configured, if I need to tell you that, this is wherein the IBGP will be there internally with the yellow color, and externally with the blue color. You'll be able to see here, 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 here. It will be EBGP. Is it clear?
Madam, madam,
Yes.
ma'am, in AS400, although IBGPs are not directly connected, and there will be IGP protocol running by the OSPF. Ma'am,
Right.
there may be another router on which OSPF is running and through which all the BGPs are connected.
Right.
Means it will be a centralized network using a single OSPF protocol. And with that
Right.
protocol, other BGP protocols are connected routers.
Right.
Ma'am, the external BGP coming will be directed to OSPF or directed to internal IBGP?
And BGP will have only BGP peering. Right? So
Ma'am,
when
I
I
mean to say,
say, when I
I mean to
say, just hold on. When I say that EBGP peering, I'm having one router here. The other router is what? The other router is this one, right? So this is the interface by which it is connected. Here it will be holding what? EBGP peering, right? Wherein on this particular link by which it is connected to this, it will be holding what? IBGP peering. Getting it? This is IBGP, this is EBGP peering. So BGP routes will be available there in the BGP table, and that can be advertised to IBGP, that can be advertised to EBGP. So there'll be two different tables over here. One is what? IGP table. Another one will be what? The BGP table. So BGP table will carry that particular route. So from the customer, it will come to the BGP table of this. This will be able to advertise the BGP table of this, the BGP table of this, and then these routers will be further advertising to the BGP table, right? So this route is not be there with the IGP table. IGP table will only have the reachability. That's it, right? We could have done that mesh as well, as the Vinay has said initially, that we could have configured IGP and BGP on all the routers as well. But if we bring more BGP within one service provider network, it will be more complicated. More resources are required, more peering is required, more number of TCP sessions are required. So to avoid that, only the boundary routers, they used to have what BGP. And if we would like to have internally as well, like if we would like to configure what the MPLS VPN, so that is entirely a different concept. So that's is being discussed with MPLS, like route reflector part. So right now we are not focusing onto the route reflector. We are only just focusing onto the simple thing, what is IBGP and what is EBGP, where do we use EBGP, where do we use IBGP, and what IBGP does. IBGP will be able to carry the route within the AS, wherein EBGP will be able to carry the route from one AS to the other AS. And it will only be done if we do what? If we advertise the route. So route advertisement is required. Until we do not advertise the route, BGP is just having the reachability. That's it. BGP is not doing anything. So we need to manually advertise this route. Then only it'll go and sit there in the BGP table, and then the BGP table will be using it as an what? Using it as an what? Update messages. But initially, at least one router has to do what? Has to advertise that route. Is it okay? Is it clear? Faizan, now you tell me if you have doubt. Is it answered, Faizan, or still there is a different query for you?
Ma'am, I have query.
Okay, tell me.
मैम जैसे हम ये AS400 के अंदर IBCP के अंदर मैम ये डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड नहीं होते, तो मैम इनका राउट्स कौन एडवर्टाइज करेगा फिर?
ये खुद करेंगे। आप मुझसे क्वेश्चन ही गलत पूछ रहे हो।
नहीं नहीं मैम, ऐसा बोल रहा हूँ, ये AS400 में जैसे IBGP जैसे रन कर रहा है मैडम, वो डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड नहीं मैम, तो मतलब विदाउट डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड उनके राउट्स तो एक दूसरे राउटर को पता नहीं होगा इंटरनली, तो बाहर से जो रिक्वेस्ट आएगी मैडम, तो अगर एक राउटर पे आती है तो उसको एक्सटर्नल राउटर पे जाने के लिए मैम उसको 2-3 राउटर तो क्रॉस करना पड़ेगा ना, तो वो 2-3 राउटर में
बिल्कुल, ऑफ
रूट
कोर्स
कैसे
करना
एडवर्टाइजमेंट?
पड़ेगा।
तो मैम वो रूट एडवर्टाइजमेंट कैसे होगी इंटरनली मैडम, वही खाली पूछना है आप।
ठीक है, थोड़ा सा टाइम दोगे उसको आंसर करने के लिए?
ओके ओके ठीक है मैडम।
ओके,
ठीक है।
fine. Okay. So is this concept clear? Where exactly we are using EBGP? Where exactly we are using IBGP?
Yes, ma'am. EBGP is used in externally, and IBGP is within same AS number.
Okay. Now to add on this as the other parameter, which Faizan has added it over here, that is what? When we are using EBGP, peer must be directly connected. And that the same is there with the same behavior is there with the other IGP protocols as well. Is it right? Fazan? Peer must be directly connected when we are talking about EBGP. Wherein, when we talk about what? When we talk about this IBGP, it is not necessary that peers must be directly connected. We can still have the neighborship if the peers are remotely connected. Right? We'll talk about that when we'll be performing the configuration. Right? So you will be able to see now here the route is what being advertised to all this. In every direction, the route is going to come in. And then this end user will be able to establish TCP connection, right? First TCP session, and then after that only the GET request will be forwarded. Yes? So once the TCP session is established, GET request will be forwarded and there will be a response with the GET request. And all this is done via what? BGP. Within the AS, when it was connected with what? The customer was able to advertise it with the EBGP, and then internally through IBGP, and then externally to EBGP, and the route will be, or the web server is reachable over the internet, whosoever is connected to the internet. So that's the important thing, very important thing that we get to know, okay, that how exactly we need to do it. Now here, there is another parameter also. What is that another parameter? The another parameter is loop avoidance. So let me do one thing. Let me draw the other diagram and then we'll talk about the loop avoidance.
Um,
Yes,
shall I
Vinay.
take this screenshot for this one, or are we done with this? I'll take the screenshot.
We are done with this.
Well,
And
yeah,
in
okay.
case you wanted to take it right now, you can, or otherwise later also you can do it. You can put it there in the
Chat,
group
yeah, the
as
WhatsApp.
well.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Everybody
Okay.
will get it, even though those guys, they are not into the
Sure, sure. Yeah, I will take that.
right? Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I hope we are doing in depth all this BGP, right? So if I'm going to spend this much time, then I don't think so that we are going to cover BGP today as well. But no worries. My objective is what you should understand each and everything,
Yeah.
right? Until you are understanding everything and we are running slow, I don't mind with it. Okay. Only the thing will be what batch will be little lengthier. I'm okay if you guys are okay with this.
I'm fine.
Okay.
You know, we are
Yeah, we
we
are
are
okay,
learning.
ma'am. No problem.
Okay. But my objective is what you should understand each and everything, because if you know BGP, if you know OSPF, if you know IPv6, nobody can stop you from any of the interview,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So this is something which is very, very important. Okay, no problem. So let's move to the next page where we need to discuss about the loop avoidance. Since the diagram was in front of me, so I thought of to talk about it as well. That's very, very important part. We say BGP is loop free, right? BGP is loop free. Very important feature which everybody talk about it, right? How it is loop free now. What is the behavior of the BGP which says that, okay, it is loop free. So let's assume that we have this AS, we have other AS, we have other AS, we have then this AS. We have so many AS are there. So I'll say that AS1. Let me take it as this only. Now there is a route which is available, the BGP route. Whenever I say route now, we need to understand there is a BGP route. And I'll take it's a route which is available over here. Again, that 1.1.1.1. Now this is being advertised by AS200, right? And all this AS are connected with various paths to each other. Right? So they have various paths available. And until the people they talk about BGP in the CCNA, they say this is the cloud. This everything is what the cloud. So this route is being advertised to AS200, and there is somebody who is available here in the AS700, and that person has to get this route. So this route should come over here, which is what? 1.1.1.1, right? So what will be the best path to reach to this, first of all? Let's talk about the best path. What will be the best path? Best path for 1.1.1.1 to reach from AS200 to AS700. There are various paths available, right? The first path, let's take it as this. 1. So I can say this is the first path. Path number 1. Right? The second path is, let's take this one. So this is the second path. So wherever I'm writing to, you can understand this is the direction which is being taken by it. Then there is a third path which is in this direction. It's like this. Yes. Then we have the fourth path. Then we have the fifth path available. Okay, let me make it fifth path as this. Five, and 5. Then there is a sixth path, like this, then like this. Then it goes to this path, and then it comes to this path. This is the sixth path. Yes. So we have assumed that there are 7 paths available with the help of all this. Sorry, I did a mistake in the end. This is the sixth path. Sixth, and the sixth. Is it right? So let's assume that there are 6 paths available now, right? To reach this route 1.1.1 to reach from AS200 to AS700. So if I need to list all this path, so what is my first path? It is originated from AS200. It is originated from 200. It will go to 100 and then it will reach to 700. Then we have second path. As per second path, it is what? It is coming to originated from 200. Then it will come to what? 100. Then it will come to 600. And then it will come to 700. Is it right? That's what is the second. Then there is a third path. That is what? 200, 600, and then the 700. Right? Any doubt with this 3 paths? You are able to understand, right? So you can let me know either yes or no that you are able to understand this. Okay. Further, now I'll take the fourth one. The fourth one is very, very lengthy. 200, 300, 400, then the 500, then the 600, then it is reaching to the 700. Then we have the fifth path. The fifth path is originating from 200, then it is coming to 500, then it is coming to 600, then it is coming to 700. Then we have what? The sixth path originating from the 200, then going to 300, then going to 500, then going to 600, then going to 700. Is it clear? Are we okay with these paths? Any doubt? Please acknowledge if you can hear me.
No, no, ma'am.
Okay, so you are
Yeah,
clear.
all good. All
Now,
good.
what will be considered as the best path? What will be available there in the BGP table?
1 and 3 are the possible best paths.
Yes,
And
1
it has
and 3.
yeah,
Since it has
3 is
shortest
Sorry, past.
AS path.
path.
Yeah.
We generally used to say BGP is a path vector protocol, right? BGP is a path vector protocol. Hence, the shortest and best path will be with less AS numbers. So here in this scenarios, we have two best path 1 and 3. Perfect. Right? So this is now the best path. It is very simple now for BGP to calculate this, and it is able to calculate. Now, there is another scenario over here. So this is what we have learned, one particular concept, that is how exactly it is calculating the best path. So we learned that how it is calculating the best path. Are we okay? Now the second thing over here, which we need to understand, what is that second thing here? That is how BGP is loop free. We need to understand that. How exactly it is loop free. So to have or to avoid the loop, there is a criteria. By each BGP peer before sending an update message. Now, what is that criteria? If I'm receiving a route and it has my own AS inside the route, do not advertise it. Now, how do we understand this? So we can see that here, this route is being advertised by the AS200, right? So what the AS200 is doing, AS200 is advertising this route to all these AS in each and every direction. And that's wherein it is able to find, okay, there are these paths to reach to AS700 or AS700 thinks, okay, I can reach to AS200 in the opposite direction, right? That's the way. Now, since this is being originated from AS200, so it is able to advertise them to all of them. Let's suppose that it is advertising the route to AS700. Is that AS700 is also advertising it further? Is that AS700 is also advertising it further? See, AS200 has sent that route to AS600. AS600 has advertised it. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Similar way, AS200 to AS300, the route is being received. Is that AS300 has advertised it? Yes. So what is the criteria? When AS200 has advertised it to the AS300 with path number 3, what is being received by AS600? That route is originated from 200, right? So can I advertise it? Since my AS number is not there, I can advertise it. Where exactly I can advertise it? I can advertise it into what? In every direction. I can advertise it over here. I can advertise it over here. I can advertise it over here. In every direction, including this direction also, I can advertise it. So when I'm advertising it into what? Every direction, what is going to happen? This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is also fine for AS600. But when it will be received by the AS200. So if it is right, if it is being received by the AS200, what the AS200 will see in the route? It will say the originator is what? 200, then the 600, and then the 600 is giving it to me back. Since now this particular route, which has what? Originator 200 and then 600, I cannot advertise it further to avoid the loop. To avoid the loop. So AS200, whenever it is advertising, be it is advertising it to what? First path, second path, third path, fourth path, or fifth path, or the sixth path, it always says, I am the originator. Right? It says what? It says that I am the originator. But when it receives the same route as a back from every other router, then it can see that originator is what? The originator is not only 200, the originator is what? It is 200, 600 or 200, 300, 200, 500 or 200, 100. That's the way it is going to receive back the route. So when it is receiving back the same route, it will see, oh, my AS number is already there in that AS path. I cannot advertise a route which I'm receiving back as in what? My AS number. So I've already advertised it, right? And while advertising, I only said what? Only one AS path is there. But in case if I see my AS path, further added with what? Few more AS numbers, I cannot advertise that particular route. If I advertise, it will be what? It will be a loop. It will be a loop. What is going to happen if AS200 again gives back it to what? 600. So it will be what? 200, 600, 200. Again back. 200, 600, 200, 600, 200, 600. And it will be a loop. Yes or no? So to avoid the loop, only what is the criteria? This is the criteria that look upon each BGP peer before sending an update message. If I receive a route and it has my AS inside the route, I am not going to advertise that route. In fact, I'm not going to keep that particular route in my routing table itself. Which routing table? BGP table. Since the route was there as in what? BGP route, that is what? 1.1.1.1. And it is originated with AS path 200. This is already there in the routing table. And I'm receiving it from AS600, which says that it has an AS path 200 and 600. I'm not going to keep that particular route in my routing table. It will be a duplicate entry with the longer AS path. Is it clear to you guys? Like example, I say, okay, Vinay, can you post this screen capture there in the WhatsApp?
Sure.
So Vinay has posted it, right? Vinay, this is an example. You can do that too as well,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So Vinay has posted it. What has happened now? Everybody has seen it. Praveen has also seen it. What the Praveen has done, without realizing that this is already there in the group, Praveen just found, oh, it's a very good explanation of BGP. Let me share it with everybody. And he has again shared it there in the WhatsApp group. Now, what Vinay is going to do? Vinay, you are going to read it once again,
No.
or you are going to save it once again in your local drive?
No.
No. You will say, oh, this is the same which I sent it. I already know it. I already have a copy of it. I'm
Yep.
not keeping it. So the same the BGP router does when it receives the route from other AS. And within that particular route, if it finds that my AS number is already listed in that particular path, I'm not going to keep that route there in the routing table. I'll prefer my route. So this is what a best route or a best path selection process as well, to avoid the loop as well. So when we'll be talking about the criteria of selecting the best path, so these two, even though we'll have a discussion over there, how the AS path is there, how exactly the route will be placed there in the BGP routing table. So BGP routing table will only have the best route. Okay. Where exactly the other routes will go? We even though sometimes call this is what? It's a BGP forwarding table, right? Sometimes we call this table is what? It is a BGP table or BGP forwarding table. And this is what being advertised. It is not dependent on to what? The IGP routes. It is only advertising as in what? Update messages, the routes, those they are available inside the BGP table. Are we okay? Is it clear to you guys? Any questions around this? So I considered it as no, in case if no one is speaking. So let's now come back to the, uh, okay, do you want to take a screen capture, Vinay?
Uh, yes, I will take.
So here we have explanation of two things. One is the best path. Another one is what? The loop avoidance.
Yeah, done.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share now the browser. So we'll perform the configuration. So let's create a new lab. That is what the BGP. BGP basics, right? That's it. Is it clear? We have two different diagrams. So first we'll work on the EBGP with the first diagram, and then we'll work with the second diagram, right? So let's focus on to the BGP configuration here. Let me start these two. Now, yesterday I told you about few commands, right? So let's perform the configuration and let's assume that we're going to have a network on gig 00 as an it has to be directly connected when we are talking about what? When we are talking about the EBGP. Let me take it as a 10.0.0/24 or 30, right? And we'll even though create a loopback here and the loopback over here. So let's suppose on router 1 it is 1.1.1.1, and here it is 2.2.2.2. Or in fact, in case if you guys are interested, I can even though take the similar kind of subnet over here, that is what 12.0. Since router 1 and 2 is there, I can even though take like this /30, in which first IP onto the first router and second IP onto the second router, right? So it is going to be very simple and we'll be able to configure it quickly, right? So let's have a look at this one. So we'll say enable say show IP interface. Config T interface gig 0/0 IP address 12.0.0.1. Is it fine? So we have configured two interfaces over here. We'll go to the other router also. Similar way, we are going to configure this. 0/0. IP address is 12.0.0.2. Right, so basic IP configuration is done on both the devices. Now we need to look at their connectivity, and after looking at their connectivity, we'll be able to configure the BGP, right? So let's just verify that we are connected with what? We are connected with each of these devices. So I can say that ping, what is that IP to which I need to ping? That is what 12.0.0.1 is the local IP, and I'll say ping 12.0.0.1, and the other one is what, 2. So directly connected, reachable. We have done the configuration of the IP reachability, and now we are quickly going to configure what? The BGP. So what is the first command? Sorry, I was not at config T. I'll say router BGP AS number is 100. So that's what I did it on what, router 1. And I'm going to go over here on router 2. I'll say similar way, router BGP AS 200, right? So after saying this, can I see anything there in the BGP? Do show. What is the command to verify the BGP configuration?
So router BGP.
Show IPBGP
Show
summary,
IPBGP. Yeah.
right? So do show IPBGP summary. Do I have anything? No.
No.
Right? Since I just defined what? Router BGP, right? So I haven't configured anything else. Only I defined what? The router BGP. So until I will not say who is the neighbor, it will not do anything, right? Only what is being done. BGP is sitting idle, nothing. We cannot say anything, even though we cannot even though look at it what? Here, what is happening? Can you see? The TCP is also not initiated. Only what? The port 17 is being locally activated on the router itself until I will not define anything. So what I need to say? What is the next command which I need to say? I need to say neighbor. I need to write it down the IP address of the neighbor. Right? That's the neighbor since I am available on router 2. Right? What I need to say now?
Remote AS.
Remote AS. That's what is 100. Right? And I'll go to the other router. Here also I will say neighbor IP 12.0.0.2. I'll say remote AS. That's what is the 200. Done. So here also I did. Here also I did. I have defined the neighbor. And if I see it, the neighborship is up. Can you see with 2 commands, the neighborship is up. So if I now check, do show IP BGP summary, the neighbor is listed over there. Right? Similar way on other router also, I'll see it. The notification message is there that BGP agencies are there. I need to just verify it. Do show IP BGP summary and I can see it.
Where we can see this keep alive whole time and at timers like 60, 180 seconds, where does it show?
Vinay, just give me a minute. Give me a minute,
Yeah,
okay?
okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys, I'm back. Okay, so Vinay, you were asking some question.
Yeah, where can we see the hello and dead timer?
Hello
Uh,
and dead timer,
that
right?
yes, the keep alive, right?
Keep alive and
60
everything,
seconds.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So this command, when we are executing this show IP BGP summary, it gives us neighbor detail. So it's a kind of a verification of neighbors. So it's a kind of neighbor table. Okay. So this is what the neighbor table, and we can see that here with this particular command, it shows what? The up and down time is what?
7 minutes, 17 seconds.
7 minutes, right?
Yes.
Yes, again, sorry. So this is wherein you will be able to see the neighbor up and down time, right? And if you will be able to see until now, these are the messages, those they are being exchanged. Message sent and message received. And this is the BGP version. That is what the BGP version 4. So that's what you are able to see it over here within the neighbor table. But when we talk about the other parameters related to BGP, that is not visible here because since those parameters are related to the BGP protocol parameter, not related to the neighbor parameter, right? So here for doing that, show IP, give me a second, say show IP, BGP, and then you have all these commands to see all those things, right? Okay, is it fine, Vinay? So a lot more commands are there. So it depends that what exactly or how exactly we have configured it. So we will be having a lot of other things to verify. That's the reason we just configured right now the neighbors. I was just showcasing you the neighbors. So if I say show IP BGP detail, you are not able to see any detail of BGP protocol because it has only what? The neighbor configured. So if I say show IP BGP topology, and after the topology, you can see that it's not. So if I say star, this is specifically for the address families where we need to configure the family. Then only I'll be able to see the topology. By default, it will not be able to capture any topology until I will not configure the specific parameter. If I say show IP BGP neighbors, it will let me know about the detail of the neighbor. So if in case if I need to see only the summarization of the neighbor, then show IP BGP summary. But the detail, if I would like to see, I'll be able to see when I say show IP BGP neighbors, right? And if one particular router is having multiple BGP neighbors, so you can even though specify the neighbor ID as well after that, right? So if you'll be able to see that, okay, this is what the parameter related to this. So if we see it over here, since from the start, What exactly is the output here? What is the BGP neighbor? What is the remote AS? It is an external link version. Remote router ID is this, right? Since it has an loopback interface configured, so router ID is this. BGP state is established and it is up for this particular time. Last read was this, last read write was this, hold down timer is this, keep interval time is this, right? So you'll be able to see there is one particular session which is what active, and it is not multi-session capable. Multi-session is right now disabled, right? So neighbor capabilities, when we see it, we can even though see what are the neighbor capabilities. So all these things are something which is advanced, which we need to look in and some parameter. Like example, yesterday we talked about the messages, right? So if we look at it, what the messages, you can see the messages. There is what? One open sent message, one open received message. Until now, there is no notification. There is one update, right? There are multiple keep alives, right? And the total this much number of messages are there. So if you'll be able to see one open sent, one open receive, one update is sent, one update is received, and rest of the keep alive messages are there. So notification when something will go, some route will be advertised, something will go down, something will come up. Based on that, the notification messages will be there, right? So this is mainly you'll be able to see it as of now, right? So this is what very, very basic behavior of the BGP. Now in continuation to this, so let's do what we have learned yesterday. Yesterday we were only talking about three things. One thing is what we were talking about, the basic command, that is what router BGP, AS number, and then we were saying that we need to advertise the neighbor, right? The third thing we talked about it, what? Advertisement of the network. Yes or no? We talked about, okay, how can we advertise the networks? So until we do what? Until we, you can say that this is that too. Until we do not advertise the neighbor, we won't be able to see even the what BGP table. So right now we were only able to see what? The two
Neighbor.
commands as in verification. The first command is what? Show IP BGP summary. Then the second command is what? Show IP BGP neighbor. So in case if I need to have what? Oh, it becomes something else. Is it a typo mistake? Okay, both the commands are show IP BGP summary. What is happening? I'm writing that way and it is going, when it is being pasted there, show IP BGP.
Actually, we can't see anything on screen when you're
Not on the
typing.
screen.
Yeah.
I'm writing it there in the chat.
Ah,
Show IP BGP summary. So you can see that
okay.
first,
Yeah.
second, third. Can I delete
Yeah, yeah,
these
yeah.
messages? Yes, I can delete. Let me delete this. I was writing it over there and it is taking some different spelling. Show IP BGP summary. Show IP BGP neighbor. Right? So these two commands are there. Right? So these two commands for the verification purpose as of now we have seen. We haven't seen anything there in the route. We haven't seen anything there in the BGP table. Right? So if I say that now we are onto the router 2, let me exit it from here. So if I say show IP route, I can see only it has connected and local routes, right? There is no BGP route available there in the routing table since there is no BGP route advertisement. So if I say show IP BGP, how do we say that see the table? If I need to see the BGP table, how do I see the BGP table? Guys, anyone?
Database.
Show IP BGP. Show IP
That's it.
BGP.
Show IP
That's it.
BGP will
Yeah.
give me the BGP table.
Yes.
There
Right
is
now it
nothing
will not
available.
see because we haven't advertised any routes.
We haven't advertised any route. So
Yeah.
if I say show IP BGP summary, you can see even though it says that state
Yeah.
is what? Nothing, but prefix is what? 0.
Zero.
Okay? Okay, the prefix is 0.
Zero.
So there is no prefix received. Right now, what I'll do, the loopback which I configured it, I'll be advertising that loopback. Right? So I'll say config T router BGP. This is 200. I'll say network. What is the network which I need to advertise? That is what 2.2.2.0. And I'll specify its subnet mask along with it. Until I will not specify the subnet mask, what it will take? It will take by default the class full. It will go to the class A. So this is what it is not taking in what I need to do. I need to specify
Mask.
what I'm doing it over here in the command itself. That's again a difference when we are simply configuring the network with the IGP and here, right? So I need to say mask, and then after that I'll be able to configure it. So I advertise now one network over here. I say do WR and I go and see it now on the other device. I just say what? Show IP BGP summary. Can you see now prefix received is 1? It becomes now from 0 to 1. And you can see now there are a lot of messages and there is a change in the table version. That is what now 2. So if I say now show IP BGP neighbor, I'll specify that I wanted to go with this particular neighbor. So I'll be getting the neighbor detail over here and I can see there is what now? 2 update messages received. No longer 1, it is now 2 update messages received, right? So what is the prefix? Current prefix is 1, right? Total prefix is 1, right? Used as a best path, 1. So you'll be able to see a lot of detail about the BGP, right? A lot more things in the detail. So we'll talk about all this in some time, right? Slowly we'll be reaching to them, right? And here, even though you can see that what is the local host, what is the local port number which is being used, what is the foreign host, what is the foreign port number which is being used to have this connectivity, right? The connection state is established, right? So that's wherein you'll be able to see. Now, if I say it here, show IP BGP, I'll be able to see there is an entry available in the BGP table. That is what it says, that star and arrow mark. So what is the meaning of star over here? Star means it's a valid route And the arrow mark means what? It is a best route. And it is originated from where? It is originated
From
from
200.
200. Right? And what is the local AS over here? That is what the 100. So let me even though configure the host name here also so that it will be easy to recognize that we are on router 1 or router 2. Now let me even though do the advertisement of local route here as well. So what local loopback I configure it, that's the same. I will be advertising it over there. I'll say route BGP 100. I'll say network, that is 1.1.1.0, mask 255.255.255.0 and to WR, and go to the other router and verify that it will be available there in the routing table. Can you see now the difference between these two? Next hop is 00. It means what? It is a self route. Next hop is what? The IP address of the peer, right? And the path is what? From AS. And this is, there is no path available. It is just an internal, right?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yep.
Is it okay? Right? Now, we have seen that how exactly we can configure this, right? We have seen the differences that what each command does. Yesterday we talked about it, and today what we have done, we have even though practically seen it, that okay, the BGP configuration with a very simple scenario where what we have done, we have directly connected two peers with EBGP, and I configured it what? A loopback interface, and I advertise it with the loopback, right? Any questions until now?
Ma'am, here is showing the weight is 0 and 32768. So by default, 222. Hello.
We will talk about the weight when we will be talking about the attributes. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So until then, hold on to this, the weight and everything. Just simple BGP is fine. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'll just make some modification into what? Into the same diagram. Okay. What I'm going to, right now the neighborship is with what? The physical link. Right. So in case if I need to make this neighborship with the loopback, there are some changes which we need to do it, right? So do you have any idea what changes we need to do it?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes, I was saying that until now we are connected with the physical interface. The
Yeah.
neighbor is what? The physical neighbor,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But in case, if we need to do what? The neighborship with the loopback.
Yeah. As you told, it should be directly connected. Loopback is not directly connected. I think there should be a command to configure to allow forming BGP neighbor with the loopback address.
Yes, right. So first of
Yeah.
all, what is the scenario in which we exactly used to have what? The loopback as a neighbor.
Uh, if physical link flaps, at least you have loopback, right? They don't flap,
They
and
don't
that's the
flap,
reason flap. Yeah.
right? Or we have the redundancy available for the links, and we say that okay, while having the redundancy, if one of the link goes down,
Yeah, you still have
right?
the
You
other link
still
here.
have the other link available, and your BGP neighborship is not going to be down. It'll remain as it is, right? It'll remain as it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make another change, or what I'll do, rather than making the change in this, what we have done, we have kept this over here, the other diagram, right? So I'm going to start these two routers, and we will be doing the configuration of that here, right? So I'll keep the similar kind of topology. I'll say that, okay, here we have what? The loopback 1.1, and here we have the loopback 2.2, right? And we'll configure one link this, another link this, when we have the redundancy available, right? So we'll be using what? The neighborship with these two, right? And the second thing is what? Until these are getting started, we can do one more thing. What is that more thing? That is the, I say show IPBGP summary. I can see this is the neighbor, right? And what is the router identifier? What is the router identifier?
It's the router ID,
Loopback.
Yes, the
loopback
loopback.
address.
What
Yeah,
is the criteria of router ID here?
looks like highest loopback address will be
Okay,
the compared to physical. We'll
right,
make that
compared to
router ID
physical,
to physical. Yeah.
right. So how the criteria is there? If I say it, generally we used to say in case if there is no loopback, the same what is there with the other protocols as well. If in case there is no loopback, then the highest IP of physical interface, right? And if loopback is configured, then the priority goes to what? Highest IP of loopback interface. And then the third priority goes on to what? On the top of it as well, the highest.
The router
Yes, right.
ID. Manually, you have to
Manually, if
configure
we
a
configure,
router ID. Yeah.
if we manually say, oh, this is the router ID, so that will take precedence, right? So meanwhile, that other routers are going to come up, let's configure a manual router ID here. Is it okay? So how do we configure a router ID on a BGP router? Tell me.
Wow.
Just enable router BGP and then ID, router ID.
R-
Router BGP 200, and I need to say
So,
router ID. No,
router
BGP
router ID.
router ID. Okay. So that's little different in the normal one. We need to say BGP router ID. And what I'm going to say, it is what? 12.0.0.2, right? It is not taking it. Why? It
Already.
becomes route ID. There is a problem in the spelling, right? So just to see it, just to see you guys there that you're on the screen or not. Can you see what has happened as soon as there is a change in the router ID? Neighbor is down, ID is changed, right? Topology is removed, router ID is changed, neighborship came up. What is this? These are notification messages, right? Now, once again, if I see it, what? If I see the BGP summary, router ID is changed. Yes? Change. And now you can see that there is what? Neighbor is up since last 42 seconds. The table version is now 3. Message sent, message received, everything is what? This counter is what? Resetted. Everything is resetted since neighbor went down. So if neighbor is going down, it means what? Internet connectivity is what? Not stable. So before making any change within the live production environment, you need to be very, very careful. So as soon as, even though what we are doing, we are just changing the router ID. Neighborship goes down with the changing the router ID since the hello packet contains the router ID. Right? So there is a mismatch. What information was available there within the database, now it is being changed. So neighborship has to go down and has to come up. So in case if it is not reflecting in the production environment and you are doing it by taking a downtime from the customer, what do you need to do? You need to do a clear BGP, right? So you need to clear the neighborship so that it can do what? It can get the changes what you have made it, right? Sometimes it is immediately, like example right now, what I did, I made a change and it is immediate in effect. But in case if it is not immediate in effect, what do you need to do? You need to say clear IP BGP. So if I say clear IP BGP, the same thing is going to happen. Same thing is going to happen. That is what? I'm saying
स्पेस स्टार है
yes, वो space star है, but actually today I'm using that Mac system, so it is giving me a lot of errors. Okay, no problem. So can you see that when we do clear, almost the same thing is happening. Neighbor will be down and agencies will be established again and neighbor is going to up. But it lets you know that it is being resetted by administration. And when we say star, it means what? It is for all the peers. But in case if I would like to do it for one particular neighbor, because in the production we cannot execute the star command, it means all the BGP neighbors is going to down. So wherever we have made the change, only that needs to be what resetted. So you need to only give that particular neighbor. Okay? So you have to be very, very careful. Are we okay? So in case if you are making a change, then also, and while making the change, in case if it doesn't go down, you need to forcefully get it down so that the change should be updated immediately. Since the BGP is slow protocol, you need to get it done immediately. Okay? So this is something which you need to always remember. So before making any change, that's where in the production, it is required to take a downtime from the customer. Are we okay? So be it is your partner or be it's your customer. So partner means that you are having what? Peer-to-peer partner neighboring, right? Like one ISP is pairing with the other ISP. Okay. So now we can say that the other devices are up. We can quickly configure it over here and we will be able to see how with the loopback, the neighborship is coming up. So what are the interfaces? 00 and 03. On 00, I'll configure the same 12. On 03, I'll configure the 13. Okay. So this is your router 3. Let me first of all configure that only. Whose name is router 3? Ouch. So what we need to do, we need to configure first of all the IP addresses on the interface. So interface gig 0/0 IP address. Let's take here the 10.0.0.1 255.255.255.252 no shut and exit. Interface is 3 and the IP address is 13 shut and the loopback 3. IP address is 3.3.3.3 255.255.255.255. Right? I'm not configuring it as a network. I'm configuring it as a single IP. Since I would like to have the neighborship with this, right? So 2WR and we'll be able to see the configuration over here. Meanwhile, let's do it quickly here as well. Config T, hostname R4, interface gig 0/0 0.0.2 shut 0/3 13.0.0.2 I did a mistake with 10. I specified 24. Interface loopback 3 and then the IP here. Let me configure it as an what? 4.4.4.4 with /32. Come back over here. So if you'll see it, when I configure 10, I specified 255. To show IP interface brief. Show IP interface brief. let's now start doing the configuration of BGP. Router BGP AS300. What has happened? Why this has
No,
Router
failed?
no
BGP.
need.
No
need
need
for
to
AS.
mention the AS.
Yes,
Since I
yes.
was speaking and I've written it the same way. Router BGP 300.
Yeah.
Right? Then what is the next command? Neighbor.
Neighbor.
I can say
And
10.0.0.2. That's the neighbor,
remote
right?
AS.
I have to
Remote
say
AS.
remote AS. That's what is the, let's take 400.
Ma'am, spelling mistake है.
Again, spelling mistake. Remote AS, right? Is it I'm doing right?
No, we are planning to do using the loopback address, right?
Right. So what I need to
Yeah.
do, I need to say no to negate the
No.
neighbor.
Yes.
The no command is there.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's
Yes.
negated, right? Now I need to say neighbor is what? The loopback IP.
Yes. It's a
With remote
4.4.
AS that. Right?
Yeah.
So I'll say that it is what?
4.4.
4.4.4.4. And I'll go back over there. Here also I'm going to do the similar thing. I'll say router BGP AS400. I will say neighbor. That is what? 3.3.3.3. And the
remote AS.
remote AS, that is what? The 300. Done?
But I don't think so it will form neighborship.
It is not going to form the neighborship as per the principle that EBGP should be directly connected peer.
Yeah.
Right? So it is not going to form the neighborship. So let's see what is the result of it when we have executed this. Right? So since the neighborship is what with the BGP, it's a manual discovery. So as soon as I define the neighbor will be listed there in the neighbor table. Right? So I can say do WR here. I can say, okay, save the configuration here as well. Come back and look at it that what exactly is the status of here. I'll say that show IP BGP summary. I'll be able to see that status what?
Idle.
And the status is what? Up, down? Never came up. 00. Table version is still there. That is what 1. Is it fine, guys? You can see right now idle state. When it is in idle? When there is no TCP session. When there is no TCP session. Remember, Fizan, yesterday about the states?
Faizan is not there anymore, looks like.
He's not there. Oh, I was waiting him to respond. Okay, no worries. So, you can see now that when is the idle state, right? So generally, very rarely idle state is being seen. So idle state can be seen when there is no TCP session, right? So why not there is a TCP session? So that's where in the command which I executed to show you what TCP detail, right? Initially, that you were able to see there were nothing TCP when we were just writing the router BGP. So here I can see, or I can execute the command show TCP brief all. So it means all the session. So if you'll be able to see, is there any TCP sessions available here? So in case if there are TCP sessions available, it will show us. Yes. Can you see local IP address is what? It means port number 1779. Foreign address is what? 444, right? And the state for the TCP is what? It is under the listening state. Right?
Yeah.
So TCP is right now listening only from the neighbor, and neighbor is not able to give any information further. So the TCP connection is not yet established. Until TCP connection will not establish, it is not going to come further. That's the very, very important thing over here. And it brings your troubleshooting skills. So you need to do what? You need to do some of the what? Some of the you can say that workaround to get it or to bring this neighborship up. Now, what is that workaround? That the first workaround is what your TCP state should change, right? And the second workaround is what? Okay, let's first talk about the first one only. What is the first one? By default, whenever there are two BGP peers, they are trying to connect. Whenever there are two BGP peers, they are trying to connect with each other. As per EBGP, we say what? They needs to be what? Directly connected. So it needs to be one link connectivity, right? And it is taking, or the BGP is actually taking the help of these physical interfaces to send the updates. Which updates? So when we were talking about yesterday BGP, so I told you, if you remember some of the screen captures, so what was the BGP parameter which I told you yesterday? How exactly BGP works? If any one of you remember that, when we were talking about BGP states, what exactly is happening? Where exactly the hello messages are there? How exactly the updates are being sent? So all those updates are being sent via these physical interfaces. That's what is being configured, or that's what is the logic, or that's what is the behavior design of the BGP, that it will be using these physical interfaces. So right now you can see that these two neighbors are connected with what? These two physical interfaces. They have the reachability. Any one of the physical interface can be taken as in what? The source of the update to send the messages that, oh, there is a port 179 activated. TCP said port 179 is activated. I need to send this message to my neighbor since there is a neighbor command available. And I'll say, when I'll say this, then only the TCP will synchronize. Before having the three-way handshake, TCP synchronization is required, right? And then the handshake will happen. Within the three-way handshake, there will be what? A sync message, right? Sync ACK and that. But they both need to synchronize. Oh, I have port 179. I have port 179. We need to establish TCP connection, right? So what is the source? How exactly this message goes for the synchronization? So this message goes by default with this. Wherein right now we are connected. We have said, oh, neighborship should be from the loopback, not from the physical. So what is the first thing which I need to say? I need to update that my source is not my physical interface. My source is the loopback interface. My source is what? Loopback interface, and I am going to execute that command, the first command, that is what? Neighbor and the neighbor IP. After that, I need to say update. The source is what? Source is not my default source. It is my loopback and the number of my loopback interface, right? So that's what I need to mention it over here, that, okay, this is the command I need to execute. Then only this source will be updated, right? So let's execute this particular command on both the devices inside the BGP, right? So I'll say once again config T, say router BGP, it's 300, and I'll say neighbor. What is the neighbor? Neighbor is what? 4.4.4. So this neighbor is going to get update from loopback, but which loopback interface? What I have configured? Loopback 3, right? That is the interface name, loopback 3. This is the command I need to execute over here. The similar way I need to execute the similar kind of command over here. What is that? I need to say neighbor. Neighbor is 3.3.3.3, and I'll say that update source. The source is what now? Again, my loopback 3 interface, where I've configured the IP, right? So that's what I did it, right? After doing this, again, if I verify, come back over here, I say to show IP BGP summary. What is going to happen? State is still idle. No change, right? Is there any change? No change. If I say that to show TCP brief all, do we have any change in this? Still no change. Still the state is what? Listening only. I specified that, okay, this is the update. Now what to do? I updated that I wanted to have the neighborship from what? Not from my physical interface. I wanted to update it that it has to be, the source needs to be considered it as in what? The loopback interface. So we specified that. There is a second criteria now. Now what is the second criteria? The EBGP packets are what? EBGP packets are holding a TTL value of 1. Remember, in the IP packet, there is a TTL value. Whenever there is an IP packet we talk about within the IP header, there is a TTL value. So what is the default TTL value of an IP packet?
250, if I'm right.
255. So when it leaves one hop and it goes away, so it is reduced to 254. Further, it is again one hop away, it is reduced to value 1. Wherein EBGP is having a TTL value of 1 only. EBGP is having a TTL value 1 only. So what exactly is happening here? When this, the update which has to go now from the loopback, that is coming from one hop to this, TTL gets expired and further the packet cannot go to the neighbor since TTL got expired. So we, first of all, we defined what? Now my update will not go from this. My update will go from the loop back. So since we are moving from the loop back to this, one TTL value goes away and there is no TTL value, packet gets what expired in the network. It means on the router itself. So I need to now change, I need to say to the BGP that increase the TTL value, right? For the security reason, we need to be very careful how much we would like to increase it. Where exactly we would like to send our updates, how many hop aways we would like to send. So you have to be very careful while making a change in the TTL value and how exactly we are making that change by executing another command here only. And what is that other command? That is what? EBGP multihop. Right? But this EBGP multihop is also needs to be executed with what? It needs to be executed with neighbor only. I need to say neighbor. Neighbor, what is that neighbor? 3.3.3.3. Now I will say that EBGP multi-hop, and what is the value of it? As per my scenario, the value of TTL is what? 2. Done. And the same thing I need to do it over here. I need to say the neighbor, and I will say that EBGP multi-hop, right? It has to go from multiple hops. So TTL value should be replaced from 1 to 2. Now, as soon as I executed this command, if I verify now what exactly is happening, still it is idle. Still there is no connectivity, right? And if I look at it, what the state of the TCP, is there any change in the state? It is still under what? Oops. It is still under what? Listening state. What else I need to do now? I made 2 changes until now. One change is what I said, that my source is now replaced from the physical interface, because by default, BGP behavior is what it takes physical interface. So I changed it to the loopback. Second, I said that, okay, the TTL value is now no longer 1. It is being replaced from 1 to 2. What else I need to do? Come back to the topology and have a look and let me know what else I need to do.
This would be a reachability.
Perfect. It's a criteria of the reachability. So I would like to have the neighborship from 3 to 4, which is configured over here. There is no reachability available. There is no IP reachability available. So 3 is configured here. 4 is configured here. So 3 to 4, there is no IP reachability. Since there is no IP reachability in terms of IGP, because direct link is connected, it's a single link, but the remote network needs to be advertised. Remote networks needs to be advertised. So it needs to have the IP reachability. Until there is no IP reachability between 3 to 4 or 4 to 3, until these two are not able to ping each other, my BGP is not going to come. So what we need to do now here? We need to run one IGP or a static route. Right? So I can configure a static route from here, that how can I reach to this network? I can configure a static route here, that how can I reach to this network? That's the third thing which I need to do it to bring this neighborship up. Right, guys? So there are what? There are various things required to accomplish the same thing. But in the production, what is the requirement? Link should not flap, right? Sometimes, even though right now, what is there? Right now we have what? Same, you can say that between, I can say the scenario is something like this, that it is what? The customer and this is the service provider. Same service provider connected with two links. Or there might be possibility one ISP to the other ISP. They need to have always available reachability. So even though if by any chance one link goes down, the other is available to have the BGP peering. So we need to do what? We need to have the IP reachability. So let's have the IP reachability. How can we have the now IP reachability? Save this task here and let me save this task over here. This is now router 4. Exit from the BGP. I need to say, what is the command to define the static route? IP route, right? IP route
3.3.3.3.
3.3.3.3 with its subnet mask. And what will be the next hop?
It will be the routers 10.0.0.1.
I must
And then,
define the other interface also so that it can perform the load balancing on both.
or we can have a different administrative distance, right? Just to have a
Right.
standby.
Just
Yeah.
to have as a standby. Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right? So let me save this. Come back over here and perform the similar kind of thing here. Exit. I'll say IP route to have the reachability to 4.4.4. And dot 0.0.2 is configured there, right?
Yeah. Thing one.
There
Yeah.
we defined 1, right? So 2 is configured over the next hop. And the other one is here, 13. Can you see? I got a message that neighborship is up. Right? So neighborship is up. So who's the neighbor now? Loopback interface is the neighbor. So if I say do show IP BGP summary, the neighborship is up, right? And what I can see it now here, the command which I was executing again and again to let you know what is the TCP connection state as well that needs to be established. So I can say do show TCP brief all. That needs to be also what? In a
It
established
should
state.
be established. Yes. Liz.
Right.
Yeah.
It needs to be established. So it is not responding. It will take some time to bring the output. Can you see now it is established?
Yeah.
And you'll be able to see how exactly the connection is being established by the TCP.
Yeah. Using the TCP port number. Yeah.
Right. Can you see?
Yes.
So initially it was listening. Now it is established. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
if there is a firewall in between, then can we also do EBGP multi-hop? In this scenario, it will be 3, right? Because
Right.
we were using, yeah, is that right?
Right.
If we, right, okay, yeah.
We can do it, right?
Mm.
What you can do, okay, I'll just give you that. So shall I wind up here itself for today? It's already one.
It's yeah, it's already 2.5 hours.
One,
Yes, that's right.
right.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
though there is too much now we discussed, right? So let me
yes,
summarize
yes,
it here. So what are the
yeah.
3 things we did? One thing is what we need to say update source, and second is what we need to say the multi-hop. So that's related to your TTL, and here also it's related to your what? From where exactly the messages will be, or who will be the source to have the BGP connectivity,
Yeah.
right? So if you see by default, it was going what? It was not
Mhm.
going 1444 like this, right? So it was taking what? The physical,
It's good.
right? So that's wherein it has to be very, very, you can say that difficult, because we said the neighbor is loopback, but we can't see here any information since this neighbor cannot take this, cannot become a source for taking out the packet until we do not define this. So when we define this, then it becomes here 3 and 4, right? Okay. The next part is over here. We need to make sure that there should be an IP reachability. And sometimes what we do, right, like right now, what we have done, we have configured the static route. But we can even though configure what? We can even though configure IGP, it means ISIS OSPF will provide the reachability. So are we redistributed any static route? No, the static route just has provided the IP reachability. So this is something, the question which was asked by Faizan, just to clear that question, that what the OSPF will do in the middle when we'll be talking about the BGP. The OSPF will only be what? Providing the IP reachability. OSPF is not going to take the network which we need to advertise. Right? So OSPF, or even though sometimes what, if it is not directly connected, like example, you're saying there is what? A firewall in the middle. So when there is a firewall in the middle, rather than configuring the BGP, because we configure it what? IBGP. So if the organization is having their 2 branches, like example, the topology is like this, that you have a router here, right? And then the firewall is there, and then the WAN is there, the other branch firewall is there, and then the router is there. So you will have what? IBGP reachability from here to here, right? Since they are having what? Same AS number. But to have this IBGP, what we need to do? We need to have IP reachability until this.
Yes.
And the firewall should not block these packets, which is a very rare scenario you are going to find it. Very rare scenario you are going to find it.
Yeah.
And most of these firewalls also support BGP. So in case if you doesn't want to configure BGP over here and still you would like to have the reachability, you can configure the BGP here in between these two firewalls itself. Right? So IBGP peering over here, then EBGP peering over here, and IBGP peering over here. So this was something that 2 organizations are what merged, and still they would like to have what their routes to be exchanged. Right? So there are various scenarios are there, and for each scenario, first our fundamental should be clear, and then only we'll be able to do what? Then only we will be able to move further. So now here, if I come to this book, If you will be able to see what are the topics which we have it over here, we have the topics for the fundamental itself, loop prevention, which we discussed, inter-router communication, which we discussed, BGP peering, right? And then it has what? Transit connectivity. We already discussed transit AS, how it works, right? EBGP, IBGP sessions we discussed. We discussed about even though the messages keep alive notification update, right? Then hold down timer, BGP identifier, that is what the router ID, we talked about it today, right? States, when it has to be idle, when it has to be connect, we talked about it, right? Then the configuration, we did it, how it is going to establish the configuration, right? Simple BGP configuration and verification of the BGP sessions, the meaning of each value which is there, right? Then after that, what else is there? Prefix advertisement. I said it to you that how we are going to advertise the routes, right? And further, the best route at the valid route, right? Though will little more we'll talk about these routes. And then router advertisement from direct source. That is what the loopback one, right? Then route summarization. So route summarization is left, I can say that from here, that little bit about the atomic aggregate, that is the attribute, and the route summarization. All this will is going to come as an what? Attributes, right? Then the BGP for IPv6. IPv6 will be talking all together, right? So I can say that we have almost covered the module number 9. We are left with what? We are left with the attributes, right? So we'll be doing the attributes, and then after that we'll be doing what? We'll be further doing the module number 10 in the next class. So this is talking about the multi-homing, and if you see that multi-homing almost we have covered. But once again, I'll take the example of multi-homing, transit routing, right? I'll explain all this once again to you. I'll say whatever is left there in the module number 10, we'll talk about that. But before taking all this for module 10, I'll talk about all the attributes, right? I'll talk about the path selection method and attributes, and then we will be going through with what is